Hey there, Evan Edinger here, and welcome back to my new series, where we look at some British words that, after living in the UK for over 10 years, I've decided to take on into my vernacular, or I've decided to throw in the bin. Today's a bit more positive, the food words that I now use every single day. Now, I did make a video last week on the words I refuse to say that are related to food. You guys, were very upset that there are a lot of regional variations that you've never heard of that I claim to have heard all the time, but hey, we all have different life experiences. Today's a bit more positive. We're gonna start right off the bat with herbs. I do still say herbs, by the way. There is an H, I understand, but herbs just still sounds a bit silly. I don't say hower, do I? Anywho, coriander. Coriander is a really good herb. You put it on lots of different foods, specifically if you're doing Mexican or just, I don't know, I just like it as a garnish especially. This isn't one that I'm translating. I'm not saying coriander, but actually I'm secretly thinking cilantro. I just think coriander is what makes sense to me. That's what it is. When I find out that cooking YouTubers don't like cilantro, I have to be like, they don't like, oh, coriander. Like, I'm actually now on that side of the argument. And a similar herb that took me, honestly, quite a while to understand that I knew what it was in American, but I just forgot. Rocket. Blast off into Flavor Town. This is one that I honestly didn't know there was a US equivalent. It was just I'd go to restaurants here, order a pizza, they'd put this rocket on it. Oh, this green leaf. Oh, that's quite a nice sharp flavor. I enjoy this. This salad has rocket and I like it. Wow, I quite like rocket. Then I find out it's called arugula in the States and I'm like, what? I guess that makes sense. And you know what? I like the sound of it. Arugula. It sounds like a nice Italian sounding word that I would have liked if I had known, but rocket is just the way I'm gonna call it now. Like I said, it's like a rocket blasting off. It sounds English, not Italian. I'm okay with that. Arugula sounds more like rutabaga, one of my favorite American words where it's called a Swede here. That's one I don't use. Not this video, but either way, arugula, I'm actually not using it. We're going with rocket today. Now, if you'd told me 10 years ago that instead of saying ground beef, I would be saying beef mince or just mince, boy, I would have laughed at you and been like, absolutely not. There's no way I'd be saying that. Ground beef. It's ground up and it's beef. But you know what? I've somehow switched. And it's weird because, especially back then and only a little bit now, I hear the word mince and my first thought is breath mince. And so if you say, I like beef mince, I'm thinking it's beef flavored mince. That's pretty gross, to be honest. But this also opens up a can of worms in the UK because, like for instance, here's a story. My first time, it's Christmas in the UK and I'm at a Krispy Kreme stand in like a Sainsbury's and they have a very interesting flavored donut. At this point, I have grown to learn that if I want to get some ground beef, I go for the beef mince. But now the mince meat is in a donut? They had a mince meat flavored donut. And I went, you know what? These Brits, they sure are crazy. I'm gonna buy one and I'm gonna eat it and I'm just gonna be like, oh, is this like some raw beef? Tickle me surprised. That's not an expression, but we're gonna go with it. It wasn't meat at all. This mince meat is what they call fruit. So hard to follow sometimes. But the mince meat is what they refer to through some, long history of this word of what is the minced fruits that go inside of a mince pie. And so that was also something I wasn't aware of, but I thought it was still a really funny accident that just made me go, I understand this language. No, I don't. These days though, when I do want to get some meat at the grocery store, I will just say, can I get some beef mince? To, I guess, myself, because who's talking to people at the store these days? I'm just gonna open up and go, hello, Mr. Store, can I get some beef mince? Thank you, Mr. Store. And yes, I do still say store instead of shop. Crucify me. These days, I'm not really gonna be saying ground beef or mince meat. I'm just gonna be saying mince. Maybe beef mince, but pretty much, I just gotta get some mince from the store. I guess I could clarify and be like beef mince, turkey mince, 5%, 20%. There's a whole realm of things, but I'm not actually saying anything to anyone. I'm just quietly going into my store, picking up my stuff, and going away. And that's probably why, if you did watch my video last week, there were some words that some of you were like, wait, who says that? Me, the guy who buys the things silently at the store and reads the package to go, it says soft baton, and then calls his friends to be like, y'all say this? And they're like, I guess. Well, yes. So if it's officially called this on a package, and I've never heard anyone say it, I'm going, I guess the Brits call this beef mince. And that's where I'm getting it from. The guy who silently shops. Genuine question for any of you Brits out there. Are you talking to your local grocer? Like, are you going in and talking to anyone? I feel like most people are like me. We just go in and get things. But then again, I am a very, London man. So maybe if you're in Yorkshire, like, hello, Mr. Butcher. Hello, Mr. Fishmonger. My accent does not sound like this. Here come the comments. All right, next. Now, as I talked about before, sometimes I go both ways when it comes to certain words, and I'm not fully committed. And this one is almost there, almost the fully committed. Sweets. The word sweets, though, I actually do use, but not the same exact way that Brits do. For those of you unaware, in America, we don't really use the word sweets, we use the word candy, candies. But when I think of things like Skittles, like things like M&Ms or little love hearts, you could say, I would actually call those sweets. For some reason, that small little, almost pick and mix style, another British thing, I would think of those as sweets. I wouldn't call them candies anymore. My brain has converted them. But when it comes to a bar of chocolate, which in the UK they call chocolate bars, I actually still say candy bar. So I've got the Americanism when it comes to the bars, I guess because I wasn't really ever into sweets growing up, and so that's now a thing. I'm like, oh, those are sweets. You can like your sweets, but I like my candy bars. That you can really tell that I am living in both countries in my head. However, Brits might be like, we do say candy when it comes to one thing, and that is actually a thing I have fully converted on. Fully meaning about 80% at this point, and that is the stuff that you clean your teeth with. Candy floss. Whoa. The other day, there was just a fun fair happening in Maidenhead, and I ended up getting some, oh my God, I just said fun fair. A carnival. So there was a fun fair happening in the old Maidenhead, and I was like to my girlfriend, would you like any candy floss? And I went, oh boy. I didn't say cotton candy. I think it just sounds cuter. It's a little bit shorter to say, but I don't know, candy floss. It sounds more whimsical. Please tell me I'm not making this up. There's just the way that I view the word is more like, ooh, candy floss. Cotton candy, I'm like, get your cotton candy here at the baseball game. Candy floss, ooh, it's a little fun fair and I can have some cotton candy. I just switched it up again. Like I said, I'm at like 80% candy floss, 20% cotton candy. Get you a man that can do both. Candy Mountain, Charlie! And now time to get into the most confusing part of this video for my brain, which is British words that I've adapted, even though we already have an American word that's the same as that word, and the American version doesn't have a comparable word. That, of course, being biscuits. Let me explain. I do use the UK word biscuits all the time now. Oreos? That's a biscuit. What? The American in me is crying. Get a digestive biscuit? I guess that makes sense. Fine tea biscuits? Delicious. Sip it up with my tea. Chocolate digestives, which of course has the chocolate on the bottom, and if you disagree with me, you are wrong, but I do say that word. In the UK, they actually use the word cookie for a big, soft, usually homemade variety. I think that makes sense. I kind of like the American version that cookie is both, but I've just adapted and now I say biscuits. The issue comes from when I think of the American biscuit, that of course being a delicious, savory, barbecue, flaky, oh, you have biscuits and gravy? Amazing. But now I'm saying biscuits and gravy, it somewhat reminds me of Oreos covered in gravy. And I'm not a Yorkshire enough lad to do that. That sounds disgusting. But it's just an annoying one because there isn't a UK equivalent to the American word for biscuit. You can't just say scone. They are very, very different things. Scones in the States are covered in demerara sugar, taste like muffins, and absolutely not the same thing as the ones here. The ones here, lovely, cover them in clotted cream first, of course, and then jam. But it's not the same. And so I actually don't have a fix for this in my brain. I just have to have the same word for two things, which, if you saw my video last week, I don't enjoy it. But, c'est la vie. I used biscuits so much at some point, I even stopped calling cat treats and started calling them cat biscuits, because that's what my flatmates Phoenix and Champ were calling them, and I thought it was cute AF. I was like, a little cat biscuit, a biscuit for your cat. Then I went, oh no. I have assimilated. Brisket for the biscuit also, I feel like makes more sense when it's a little cookie type thing as opposed to, an American biscuit. Does that make sense? Doesn't that just take the biscuit? Also, I feel like mostly is an idiom that doesn't really work in the US, so maybe these are reasons why I've taken the word on. And I'm sure you'll be happy to know that when it comes to chips versus fries, I am like 99% of the way on the UK side at this point. I think it's because it took me a little bit of time to adjust, but when someone took me to a proper pub and I got some proper chips, it felt a crime to call them fries. Fries, I do still use, specifically when it comes to things like McDonald's fries. They're just thin. That's kind of just the way I think of fries. But when you go to a good pub, you get those thick boys. That's a nice bit of chips. All right, you go to a chippy, get some chips. In the US, the equivalent of that is steak fries. That does not have the right ring to it anymore. Steak fries? That's We don't really serve them often unless you go to a steak restaurant or like some fancy place that has them. But steak fries? It just seems wrong. Chips? Oh, it just hits a spot in me now. Chips. I always want some chips. I don't really ever want some fries, but I want some chips. That also causes confusion because in the US, chips is a bag of Lay's, Walker's, potato crisps. I've also committed to saying crisps now. It's just something that snuck up on me, but I think it's just when I get a bag, I open it up, I grab some. Do you know what I think? Boy, these are quite crispy. Am I thinking, boy, these are quite chipsy? No, because chips, like I said, they hold this spot in my heart for those big beefy boys. Crisps, chips. I'm more British than I'm American with a lot of these food words. Don't act like you got a chip on your shoulder, okay? As I mostly only got into cooking and baking in the UK, things like single and double cream made the most sense to me because I didn't even know what the US equivalent was until I had to look it up and go, oh, light and heavy cream. I guess that does make sense. One's lighter, one's heavier. Yeah, I don't think one is better than the other. In fact, arguably the US one, I think in my mind does make more sense even learning it afterwards, but because I just learned single and double cream so much when going to bake things and, getting custard and making whipping cream and stuff, that's just what I'm using. So there you go. On the topic of creams though, there is a word they do not have in the UK, and it's not something I miss because I'm someone that has my coffee black because I do know how to make good coffee. And that of course is half and half. You might be surprised to find Americans always complaining about the UK's lack of half and half. And if you don't know what it is, it's pretty much half or 50% whole milk and 50% light cream / single cream. So it's that in-between phase. It's creamier than whole milk, which makes the coffee tastier, and yet it's not full cream, so it's not so fatty. So that little in-between. It's not really a thing here. We just either use whole milk or I'm pretty sure most people just use some sort of milk or milk alternative these days. Wow, that topic went on for quite a while. I really know how to milk them. And when it comes to a lovely Sunday roast, a roast dinner, I use those expressions because the Sunday roast is glorious. I like going to a place specifically on Sunday to get a nice roast dinner, a Sunday roast. But one of the items in that menu, I do go back and forth with, and I've just recently switched over to a majority, using the UK term, mash. It's so quick. If I'm just making myself some mashed potatoes, the American word, I will say, I'm making mashed potatoes. But when I want to offer some to someone else, when I go to a pub and it's on the menu, I'll say, can I get some mash? Oh, I've made you some mash. I don't know why that it's flipped like that, where if it's just for myself, I'm like, I'm making mashed potatoes. And then if it's for someone else, get me some mash. But I do like how it sounds. It's very cute. It's very quick. And then for the final one, I hope this one gets my citizenship back, in terms of how many people were upset from last week's video. But when it comes to the Yorkshire pudding, the humble Yorkshire pudding, you might not be aware, but we do have an American word for this, one in which I didn't know of until I watched a video from esteemed cooking YouTuber Adam Ragusia, and he's teaching a recipe for how to make a popover. And I'm watching this getting angrier and angrier, going, what the hecking frick is a popover? Like, I'm gonna pop over to the shops? I'm gonna pop over your face? Well, it's a Yorkshire pudding. And then I realized how much passion I have for the Yorkshire pudding. It's a Yorkshire pudding. Don't call it a popover. I understand that languages, evolve and change, but a popover? That it pops over? It makes sense. But a Yorkshire pudding just is what I know it as. And so that is now 100% the term. I'll never call it a popover. That just sounds silly to me. Silly! The American word? What has happened to me? If you want to pop over to my channel, I'm making these videos every single Sunday, by the way, so be sure to subscribe. And now I think I'm going to pop over to my computer desk. Now, I just want to say a big thank you to those of you who bought one of my photographic prints recently. I super appreciate all the kind messages that you've been sending me about the prints. Heck yes, thank you. If you did miss out and you wanted one though, I'm hoping to reopen the shop in December or so for Christmas with the morning, afternoon, and lunar cycle prints in A2, which is crazy. I've never printed that large. Now, because I don't print regularly because of just how much time it takes to do, I would honestly forget all the nitty-gritty details of the printing process if I didn't keep myself incredibly organized, which is why today's video sponsor, Milanote, is so vital. Thank you, Milanote, for sponsoring today's video. Today, I'm going to show you a bit of my workflow on how I used Milanote to organize myself so that when December comes, I can just get to printing right off the bat. So we've got my printing process here. I've got all the details and little to-do lists, which are super easy to add here. I added lines just so I can show this is the way we're going at stories, thank you cards. I added images so that I have references to see how I'm supposed to do it for the next time. I hate it if someone bought a print from me in December and then like the certificates are completely different to the other ones unless it was for a very specific reason, like I have to use a specific fountain pen to make sure it looks that good. That's just the way that I am, okay? But I love that I'm also able to draw my own stuff on the board itself. Like, this is a box. This is a postage tube. I also sketched a little smiley face. Like, I don't know why. They just allow you to do this because that's the way my mind works. I can just have it look a little bit more 3D. Here was a tweet of someone that received their print for encouragement. And if I want to add anything at any point in time, I can just drag any of these around, move them. They don't have to look straight and organized. I can have the lines going diagonal down right. I can add a to-do list over here. It's great that with Milanote, you have a bit more creative freedom with how you organize your to-do lists and such. And if you'd like to use Milanote, this lovely creative solution to get more organized today, I highly recommend using the link in my description because, well, it's great, helped me out, and hopefully it'll help you out. So thank you very much, Milanote, for helping my printing workflow out and also for sponsoring today's video. Now let's pop over back to the shop. As always, the world inside my head is a confusing maelstrom of words from different cultures and different times of my life, all mixed up in one in my brain trying to come up with the right answer. There isn't really a right answer. Whatever words you use are yours, and mine are mine. And I think they're pretty cool because I chose them. And thank you so much for watching today's video. I really appreciate you stopping on by again for this new series. Hopefully you like it because I've got 1 or 2 left in the pipeline before resuming to whatever the heck I do on this YouTube channel. Thanks again. I'll see you next Sunday. Tschüss. I guess he's going back to German for the goodbyes. Anyway, I have another video you can watch if you'd like. I'm not at the piano today, so no songs. In the comments section, don't be rude turds about my choice of food words. Okay.